And to bring this season to a close, I'd like to welcome our guest today, Professor Percy Lezard. Percy is a professor in Laurier's Indigenous Studies program on our Brantford campus. Welcome, Percy.
Hello, everybody.
So, Percy, maybe we could start off by if you tell us a bit about your background. How did you come to be working at Laurier?
Let's see. So my path, I've been an educator formally since 2007 when I first started at X University in the School of Social Work. And have at the same time I started my doctoral program at OISA UT, which was SESI, which is now Social Justice Education with Women and Gender Studies. When I see boxes, I tick them. So I figured I might as well get a collaborative PhD. So I am fortunately able to say finally that I was successfully able to defend my doctoral dissertation this past Friday. And my committee members mentioned thesis accepted as is.
Well, so congratulations. Yeah,
my journey has been one that has not been linear. As a two-spirit person, I went in circles around. I know folks usually do PhD programs and then work on getting mentored and supported on creating a teaching dossier, a research statement, start publications, engage in service. I started to do that before my PhD program. So when I came to before I was here, I was at the Faculty of Social Work at University of Manitoba, and then found my way here. Was on a limited term appointment. People moved in different positions. We had Dr. Darren Thomas, who now accepted the position they're in here at Wilfrid Laurier, and for the first time in many institutions. Because I've taught both at and been in appointments at both college and university, found a place that was supportive of all my intersecting identities and my scholarship with my colleagues. So that's how I found my way here, here at Wilfrid Laurier. And I figured again, I might as well not just be an assistant professor pre-tenure, might as well be the program coordinator. So
just for some added stress.
Yeah, so I went through that and was very happy to hear the chair and the departmental hiring committee were able to make an offer and went through those negotiations, and I accepted willingly to be part of this program. And before we're thinking about the ways in which we can support Indigenous excellence here at Wilfrid Laurier, and with the support of amazing colleagues, Dr. Leanne Lenny, Jessica Bomberry, and Darren Thomas, and accomplices, Tara, Bruce, Rebecca, and Vanessa, able to be here and find ways to truly actualize Wilfrid Laurier's indigeneity, which is part of the strategic plan here.
Mm-hmm. Well, it is a circuitous path you took, but also really amazing. I've seen a few other people who have started faculty positions before finishing their PhD, and I've seen ones that don't make it through that because it is so hard to do. And so, congratulations for having done that. That's a serious accomplishment. Mm. So, Percy, how would you describe your area of scholarship? You know, what are some of the questions you seek to address in your work?
I think much of this is predicated and taking direction from community. Do I have personal interests? Absolutely. But one of the things that I prioritize and I'm committed to is mutually beneficial, reciprocal relationships. And those are the same words, and they mean the same thing, but from community. And in this case, Indigenous folks, young folks, houseless folks, two-spirit, indigiqueer, gender diverse folks. So a lot of my relationships that have taken, particularly here in the Dish with One Spoon and the Three Fire Confederacy, since 1998, I've been building relationship and some of the projects. Like as I came to the appointment here and the process for the appointment here, I'd already had a healthy research program portfolio. I think I've had like 14 projects already done. My publication it's first of its kind, the National Action Plan for 2S LGBTQIA+ report that was done, and the impact of my work has been through that work, through my relations, Monica Jack, the youngest person to have been reported on the highway of tears to have gone missing in 1976, I believe, Diane Stewart, 1996, Roxanne Louis, and my late and recently my younger sibling who is still recovering medically, Julissa Kruger. That work, again, first of its kind, to know that October 4th and February 14th also include 2S LGBTQIA, because we had the national inquiry come to fruition. And with this impact of this work, it has gotten announcements from the current federal government to support missing and murdered Indigenous relatives and kin, with the most recent budget announcement of $2.2 billion. So the impact of my work is large and huge. And again, it's also predicated on direction from community as a, so yeah.
So Percy, I think you've kind of already answered this in a sense, which my next question was going to be what motivates or inspires your work, but please feel free to elaborate. But I think I heard you say that you take some of your motivation from the communities that you're working with in thinking about your scholarship.
Also, I'm one of two Indigenous gender diverse folks in an administrative position nationally in Canada. There are people who identify as two-spirit, but I don't want to conflate sexual orientation with gender identity and expression. There are many people who are in positions, whether as directors or the AVP of York, Dr. Susan Dion, but myself and another person at the college level, the only gender diverse Indigenous folks in a position in post-secondary. I think it's important representation, like if we were to actualize the 94 calls to action also needs to include, much like this here, needs to include all of us or none of us. And I think it's important for community members, students, colleagues, support staff to see their intersecting identities represented in various decision-making positions in the post-secondary systems, whether it's college and or university. So that's my number one motivator. Number two, the fact that my older sibling who was born 12 months before me was the last person in my family to have gone to went to residential school, and I'm the first matrilineal and patrilineally to go to public school, high school, college, graduate school, a PhD, and now be in a position in the university is also motivation. But I also want to be very clear, me being here is not success. It is one of the ways in which we can acknowledge multiple ways of knowing and being. And I believe institutions are being pushed to prioritize Indigenous thought and thinkers and folks in various positions. And that's one of the things that I want to do is support. One of the motivators is that because I'm here, I'm bringing 3 people with me, but more than 3 because I'm mentoring about 12 to 15 folks, and they're doing major research papers or PhDs, to say that here's a roadmap, and this is what I did to survive, and I want to create the conditions for you not to just survive but thrive. And if this is something you want to do, I'm going to support you to get there, and I don't want you to go where I'm at, but I want to help you get to where you actually want to go, which speaks to consent, speaks to the notions of giving back, and supporting others, scaffolding, succession planning, because we have a lot of folks nationally that have a lot of things that can expand and support where institutions say they want to go and actualize how to get there. So I feel that's one of the motivators. And I found that I love to teach and I love to be in relationships with others and help them through a harm reduction lens. And I get that that has stigma attached to it. Reduce the harms of when they come into contact with Indigenous people, either in Indigenous studies. I know Indigenous studies is interdisciplinary, so we have child and youth workers, we have folks who are social workers, digital media, art and law society, so supporting them in their sectors of the folks that they come across, Indigenous individuals, families, communities, or nations, that they'll reduce the harm and be affirming and supportive. So yeah, so those are a lot of motivators.
Well, some very powerful motivators. I could see that. Yeah. So Percy, thinking about your research program and where you want to take it in the future, is there one larger question that you're working on, or are all the sort of pieces of your research, they just sort of stand alone and create the body of work?
I look forward to the day where I can respond versus react to situations. Missing and murdering Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit trans folks is something that is going to continue if we don't look at the reasons that multinationals do resource extraction, and then seeing that they continually cause harm to Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit folks with that resource extraction in man camps. So that's always going to be there. I'd rather respond and want to celebrate Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit folks to thrive versus not be seen with humanity and to be displaced. I would love to be affirming. So I look forward to that day. I also look forward to the day where, as a Two-Spirit gender diverse person, that me and my relatives nationally don't experience harm when they come into contact with the helping sector, social services, or the medical sector. So I look forward to the day where I can respond and talk about the ways beyond resilience, a lens of trauma porn, but affirmation for my communities and where I have multiple membership. So my responses would be being able to collaborate in situations where we're not having to prove humanity for one of our intersecting identities, but that we can be celebrated and honored, and not proving that we deserve humanity. So it's complicated, and much of the way in which research funds and particular issues needs to be called to. I've put myself in those positions. I know one of the, up until 2018, I struggled with chronic houselessness. And so now I'm part of the Indigenous Advisor Council for CMHC and trying to bring to the conversation nationally and how decisions are made for housing, because I know CMHC and the federal government had promised by 2030 that everybody would be housed. Well, they announced that they're not able to meet that and meet the 5 years that the First Nations didn't even talk about Métis or Inuit folks would have access to clean water. So I want actualization. So I'm putting myself in positions to have critical conversations and find ways to actualize Indigenous folks who experience houselessness are housed, and folks to have access to clean water, have access to clean water. I know my territories where I'm from in unceded BC, they are more than half of the province is underwater. So yeah. So
Percy, I mean, your scholarship, you sort of clearly collaborate with the communities that you're working with, but do you collaborate with other researchers when you're doing your work, or do you usually work alone in that regard?
No, I actually work with other folks, and because of that document, the National Action Plan, it's going to help people in Australia, and I will be taking some time to do research, and I've been invited, meaning I don't go anywhere without an invitation from the original people of the land, with the Macquarie University's Indigenous Studies program, with some other scholars there to do some work in relation to Indigenous excellence. They're gonna mentor me to how to successfully promote and set up an institute. I know we are, as an institute, trying to figure that out. So I want to figure out how to actualize that and support them with their own national inquiry. Because as I'm in further conversations with Indigenous scholars from Australia and New Zealand, we have similar and parallel issues in the ways in which violence is enacted on their Maori or Aborigine women, girls, and Two-Spirit trans folks. So that's some of the things I'm going to do. I know I have a project where it's interdisciplinary as well, where I'm trying to promote and support trans health nationally through CPATH, through a recent grant. I know people contact me quite a bit. I know the CIHR just had an announcement of funds, and I was contacted by 4 different people to have 3- and 5-year projects. And I'm like, okay, let's build a relationship. I know that I check off a lot of boxes, but I don't know who you are. If I ask community about you, what would they say about you? Right? But there's definitely folks that I want to do work with, when I'm putting the time in to build a relationship with them so they can have a sense of who I am and how I am in the world, and make an informed decision about collaborating with me.
Percy, the visit that you're hoping to do to Australia, do you have a plan for when you hope that will happen?
Well, I was just in conversation with those folks, and they said I'm more than welcome anytime. I have my double backs, and I know that's another conversation for folks. And I know I'm welcome anytime, and I know it'd be 6 months, and I know I have folks over in New Zealand who I would like to see and continue some of the work that I was doing with them. That's land-based. That's in relation to the helping sector and Indigenous knowledges.
Right.
So
okay.
that might be, I know when I accepted my offer with the previous interim dean, Carter, mentioned that the first 2 years of my appointment. So.
Okay.
Potentially next winter.
That would be great.
Very soon. Yeah.
Yeah. Percy, what I know you're what would you describe as one of your prouder moments as a scholar?
Oh goodness. So in my defense, Dr. John Portelli asked if I was interviewed on As You Know It, CBC, what would you say? I said I'd probably pass the mic over to a junior scholar or someone who's starting their PhD or their master's program, because I've spoken enough. And if I truly am about scaffolding or succession planning, I would create the space to raise up other people. So I would, again, I want to create an opportunity for, like I see some of the names, I want to ask Anne-Marie what would they like to bring forward as one of the attendees here. I would ask who would like to have the opportunity to say something. And I would step to the left and not center myself. Understood.
We're running short of time here, Percy. Maybe just one more question, and it's just more of an invitation to speak about what you would like your colleagues in the audience here to take away from their meeting you in this interview here? Like what do you want them to remember?
I'm one of many, and I think when we're in our meetings and when we're in our programs, let's look to see who's not there and how can we create opportunities for those folks to be at the fire, to be at intake, to be invited to job talks, and to be invited to decision making of how to actualize the strategic plan of indigeneity for Wolf at Laurier, and what are the authentic, the genuine ways in which we can support Six Nations and their Indigenous sovereignty, and with the Three Fire Confederacy. What are the ways in which we as an institution can give back and support them in their liberation and sovereignty? Yeah, so those are my commitments, and that's what I would like people to know me for.
I think it came through clearly, so I hope they do. I hope they do take it that way. Unfortunately, we are at time here, folks. So I want to be respectful of your time. So that's all for us this week, and actually this season. So I would like you all to join me in thanking our guest, Percy